It's a fine line between royalty and the public. Well, celebrity and the public, everybody knows that. You only have to see the papers every single day to realise that phrase now, chums, who's being cancelled, who's not being cancelled. But it's a lot worse, if you are a member of the British monarchy, or indeed I would say any member of a royal family, because the public sort of own you. That's the way they feel. They grow up with you, they look towards you in times of stress, happiness, celebration, all of that sort of stuff. And it's very difficult when that bond gets broken, and even more so when, in many respects, this particular story was nothing to do with the person that broke it. As ever, let me explain. Morning, nice to see you, chums. Thank you so much for joining me today. We are in St Pancras, in the very heart of London. Not a bad place, this, actually. I've got to be honest. It used to be, of course, the famous St Pancras station, which it is, sorry. This part is the old hotel that they've done up. It's sort of been modernised and everything like that. But it's interesting. I just stumbled across the old booking office. And I remember coming into London and actually buying a ticket in there. And it was so ornate and beautiful and all that sort of stuff. And when you think, wow, and if you knew then what you knew now about your youngest, you know what I mean? Have you had a moment like that when you're standing there thinking, wow, all of those years ago, and I can remember every single moment of it because it was really daunting. You know what it's like coming from another area of the country and suddenly you're in the big wide world, the smoke. Of course, the royals don't have that problem. And when you think about it, they're just literally picked apart by the media for decades, for many decades, in fact. But it's difficult because, as we know, particularly with our British monarchy, they don't like to complain or indeed explain. This was the thing really set upon, I would say, way back in the 1930s, following the abdication of Edward alongside Wallis Simpson. They felt it was better to sort of let the public read what they want to read, and eventually things will be put together. The downside to that, of course, is that stories remain set, don't they? They literally, people then think, well, this must be the truth. And one of the truths that I wanted to share with you today is really this, about one of my, as you know, favourite royals, Queen Mary of Teck. Now, I've told you before that Queen Mary, in many respects, got a bad rap. Simply because, she was distant. She wasn't, this wasn't her first language. She spoke in German, very Germanic in her ways, all of that sort of stuff. But a very tough cookie, one that the monarchy would not have survived without. Now, of course, many people know that when faithfully that meeting took place, the very first meeting was in fact in 1931 between her son, the Queen, the King, and Wallis Simpson, albeit very, very briefly. She gave one of apparently an amazing curtsy, and apparently Queen Mary said she could be trouble, sensing straight away that this is going to be an issue for her son. Now, as we all know, as this story evolved and it broke and everything like that, it must have been very tough for Queen Mary, because of public perception, to cut off her son. You see, the story goes that even when the Archbishop of Canterbury at that time put a speech together and then it was read apparently on the radio, she backed it because she realised that the British public, the Commonwealth, were absolutely appalled at the fact that her son had decided to abdicate. You can understand the pressure that she must have been under. And of course, this was her story now, all thanks to her son. She could never really have her own legacy because it would be the mother of the king who abdicated, and of course, Edward and Mrs. Simpson. But what was fascinating, actually, talking to a few people who knew her amazingly way back in the 1940s, was the fact that apparently Queen Mary truly never got over the abdication, but not in the level that you might think. She staunchly believed in what she believed in, and that was the deal, the problem. But the other side of the coin was truly this. You see, according to that source, Queen Mary felt that, yes, she would like to forgive her son, and as we know, she couldn't bring herself to. They only met a couple of times since that, and then he attending the funeral, etc. But she said, you see, while I may be able to forgive you, the public won't forgive me. You've put me in an impossible position. And when you think about it, it's a tragic story, isn't it? Because he did, he decided to lay down the gauntlet, and the Queen had to do what was right for the Commonwealth, for the Constitution, for the monarchy. We wouldn't have the monarchy we have now, or indeed our glorious Queen of 70 years, had it not been for that moment where Queen Mary made that very strong decision. I mean, at that point, the monarchy was teetering on the brink, and she made that. But as this source told me, the problem that Queen Mary had, and this is a very elderly gentleman that used to work in the palace, he said that she couldn't really give back because she felt, given her age, her background, an Edwardian lady, well, what would the British public, the Commonwealth, actually think of her now if she suddenly changed her mind? Was she not being truthful all along? And it goes back to what I said at the start of this video. It doesn't matter who you are or what you are, celebrity or royal, the public trust is a very, very thin line. And in the case of Queen Mary, she simply wasn't willing to risk it, even for the love of her son. Neil Shawn, St Pancras, London.